A 6-year-old girl walked into a CEO's office and asked for a job. It was an ordinary Wednesday morning at Global Edge Corporation, a glass and steel tower that scratched the clouds and boasted the city's most ruthless CEO, Mr. Charles W. Grayson. His name alone caused secretaries to stiffen and executives to sweat. His company was known for being efficient, cold, and profitable. Emotions were not a part of the workflow. Until that morning, the front lobby was buzzing with the usual flood of applicants. Suits freshly pressed, resumes clutched tight, eyes full of desperation and ambition. Amid this adult chaos, no one noticed the little girl, barefoot, holding a folded paper in her tiny hands. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was 6. Her name was Jabo. She didn't have an appointment. She didn't have an education. But she had a purpose. Jabo waited patiently in the marble, floored lobby, her small body lost between towering chairs. People walked past her like she was invisible. She didn't mind. She was used to being invisible. But today, she couldn't afford to be. Her mommy hadn't eaten in 2 days. The medicine on the shelf was empty. And last night, her mommy had whispered with cracked lips, "Jabo, if I don't wake up tomorrow, be strong." But her mother did wake up, barely. And Jabo knew what she had to do. She didn't know what a CEO was. She didn't know what a resume was supposed to look like. But she had heard that jobs came from big people in big rooms at the top of tall buildings. So she walked into the tallest one. The receptionist, a sharp-faced woman named Miss Carter, looked up from her computer and froze. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" "No," Jabo said simply. "I need to talk to the boss." Miss Carter laughed uncomfortably. "The boss?" "Yes, the biggest boss, the one who gives jobs." Miss Carter raised an eyebrow. "Honey, children don't apply for jobs." Jabo unfolded the crumpled paper in her hands and placed it gently on the reception desk. It was drawn in crayon. Under the title, "My Resume," were 3 scribbled lines. "I can clean things. I can sing lullabies. I don't cry much." Miss Carter didn't know whether to laugh or call security, but something about the way the girl stood, chin up, shoulders square, eyes determined, made her pause. She picked up the phone and whispered, "Sir, you're going to want to see this." 10 minutes later, Jabo was walking through the executive hallway, her feet barely making a sound on the polished floor. The doors opened to mist floor. Grayson's office, a room so large it had a fireplace, a wall of books, and floor-to-ceiling windows showing the skyline. He looked up from his desk, irritation already forming on his face. "Why is there a child in my office?" he barked. Jabo stepped forward, held out her paper, and said, with the calmness of someone much older, "Chor, if I don't get this job, my mommy will die." The room went still. Mr. Grayson's eyes locked onto hers. Something in him, long buried, shifted. He stared at the child. No tears, no begging, just truth, raw and plain. He reached out, took the paper, and read the 3 crayon lines. He said nothing for a full minute. Then he leaned back and whispered, "What did you say your name was?" "Jabo." "And how old are you?" "6. Silence. Grayson looked over the resume again, then slowly said, "Do you know how to use a computer, Jabo?" "No, sir, but I can learn." "Do you know what we do here?" "You help people get money." That made him blink, something like that. Mr. Grayson had built an empire by saying, "No," faster than most people said, "Hello." He had turned down Harvard graduates, Fortune 500 veterans, and Silicon Valley prodigies without blinking. But now, he found himself strangely speechless. This little girl stood before him, as if it were completely normal for a child to demand employment in a billion-dollar company. "Where's your mother now?" he asked, his voice softening against his will. "She's at home," Jabbo replied. "She couldn't walk this morning." "And your father?" "He left when I was a baby. Mommy says he chased money and forgot us." Grayson swallowed hard. The room fell quiet. Behind Jabo, Miss Carter, the receptionist, stood frozen by the door, watching the exchange with wide eyes. Grayson folded his hands and leaned forward. "Let me get this straight. You came here alone, walked through downtown, found your way into one of the most secure buildings in the city, rode an elevator to the 37th floor, and asked me for a job." Jabo nodded. "Yes, why not ask someone else? Someone smaller. Because you're the biggest." For a second, something flickered in Grayson's chest. He hadn't felt it in years. He wasn't even sure what it was. Guilt. Sadness. Maybe all of them, too. "All right," he said finally. "Let's assume, hypothetically, I gave you a job. What would you do here?" Jabo stood taller. "I'd clean the windows. Or the floor. Or the desks. I can wipe things real good. I clean Mommy's room every morning." He tilted his head. "You think that's enough for a paycheck?" "I don't need a lot," she said. "Just enough for 1 week of medicine. Then Mommy can try walking again." He studied her face. No flinch. No sign of manipulation. Just hope. God, he hated hope. It was the one thing he'd trained himself to avoid. Hope made people weak. Hope was expensive. Hope hurt, but this child didn't just carry hope. She was hope. "Miss Carter," he said suddenly, never taking his eyes off Jabo. "Yes, sir. Tell accounting to send 500 to this address. Mark it as community service." Miss Carter blinked. "Sir." "Do it." He turned to Jabo again. "That should cover medicine for a few weeks." Jabo didn't smile. She didn't even blink. "No," she said. Grayson raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." "I didn't come to ask for money," she replied. "I came to work. I want to earn it." It hit him like a slap. How many adults had sat in front of him begging for a handout, a favor, a shortcut? But this little girl wanted to work. He leaned back in his chair, genuinely at a loss. "And if I say no?" She thought for a second, then whispered, "Sure. Then I'll go to the next building and try again." A Miss Carter gasped. "It's 40 degrees outside." "I have shoes." Jabo lied. "No, you don't," Carter muttered, noticing her blistered feet. Grayson stared at her again. That flicker in his chest turned into a spark. "You want a job?" he asked. She nodded. "Then starting today, you'll be our junior office assistant." Miss Carter choked. "Sir?" "Don't worry, Carter. We'll make a desk out of cardboard if we have to." He stood up, walked over to the child, and knelt down so they were eye to eye. "You'll come here every day at 9 a.m. You'll help with basic tasks. You'll learn. You'll earn." Jabo's lip quivered. "Can I bring my own cloth to clean?" He smiled. He actually smiled. The first time in months. "Bring whatever you like." Putu Jabo left the office that day with a small envelope in her hand. An advance on her first week's work. And a company badge that said, "Jabo, Assistant in Training." The HR department thought it was a joke. The legal team nearly had a breakdown, but Grayson was unmoved. For the first time in a decade, he felt alive. He didn't know what it was about her, Her courage, her honesty, her impossibly grown-up eyes. But something about this child had stirred the dust off his soul. That night, Jabo returned home. Her mother was lying still, barely conscious. Jabo placed the envelope beside her pillow and whispered, "I got the job, Mommy." Tears slid silently down her mother's cheeks. Meanwhile, Mr. Grayson sat in his penthouse office, looking at her resume again. Crayon, misspelled words, a drawing of a sun in the corner. He couldn't stop staring at the line. "I don't cry much." He reached into his drawer, pulled out a framed photo long buried, and blew off the dust. It was a girl, maybe 6, maybe 7. She had his eyes. He hadn't seen her in years. His heart thudded. "Lily," he whispered. The following morning, Global Edge Corporation was not ready for what happened. At exactly 8:58 a.m., the elevator doors opened on the 37th floor. Out stepped a little girl in oversized sneakers, borrowed from a neighbor, and carrying a bag made from an old pillowcase. Inside were a cloth rag, a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in newspaper, a hand-drawn badge that read, "Professional Worker Girl." She walked down the marble hallway like she belonged there. Some employees chuckled. Others froze. One intern nearly dropped his coffee. But Jabo wasn't there to impress anyone. She walked straight to the front desk. "Where's my desk?" she asked politely. Miss Carter blinked. "Oh, follow me." They had prepared a little corner near the break room. 2 stacked boxes and a chair too tall for her. But Jabo climbed it like a queen taking her throne. Grayson, standing nearby, watched with a strange expression. "She's really here," he murmured. Miss Carter leaned toward him. "Sir, this is going to cause a media scandal if anyone finds out." "Then don't let them find out. HR says this is illegal. So is firing people for being annoying, but we do that too," he snapped. Carter sighed. "You're serious about this?" He didn't answer. Jabo's first assignment was simple: organize the office supply cabinet. It was a mess of staplers, paper clips, and dusty printers. Most adults would grumble and delay. Not Jabo. She jumped in with excitement, humming a little tune as she worked. Her hands moved quickly, sorting paper sizes like a tiny librarian. In just 2 hours, the cabinet looked like something out of a luxury catalog. Then came lunch break. Most employees gathered in the sleek cafeteria, where Jabo sat alone at a corner table, unwrapping her sandwich. Some stared. A few whispered, but one woman, Talia from accounting, walked over. "Mind if I sit with you?" she asked. Jabo looked up and smiled. "Only if you're nice." Talia laughed. "Deal." As they ate, Jabo asked questions. "What's Excel? What's a quarterly report? What's a bonus?" Talia was stunned. "Why do you want to know all that?" "So I can help better," Jabo said. "If I help better, maybe they'll keep me longer. Mommy gets sicker at night." Talia's throat tightened. She handed Jabo her cookie. "You're already helping more than you know." Meanwhile, in his office, Grayson sat staring out the window. But his mind wasn't on profits or stock prices. It was on the little girl who had somehow melted through the armor he'd built for years. Her voice kept echoing in his mind. "If I don't get this job, my mommy will die." He picked up his phone and dialed. "Marcus, pull all files from social services matching a girl named Jabo, age 6. Possible single mother, East Side, no father on record." "Yes, sir. And keep it quiet." 2. That afternoon, Jabo had her second assignment: help file documents alphabetically. a task she barely understood. "I can't read all these words," she whispered to Carter. "It's okay," Carter said softly. "Want me to help?" Jabo hesitated, then said, "If you help me, I'll sing you a song." Carter laughed. "Deal." By 3 p.m., the files were organized and the break room was echoing with a little voice singing an off-key lullaby. Employees paused to listen. Some smiled. Some wiped away tears without understanding why. At 5:00 p.m. Jabo clocked out. Her time card was real. Grayson had insisted. As she walked toward the elevator, Grayson appeared by the door. "Good job today," he said. "Did I earn enough for tomorrow's medicine?" she asked. "You earned double." She smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Boss." He almost corrected her, "Mr. Grayson." But something about the way she said Mr. Boss made him let it go. "Be safe getting home," he said. She looked up at him. "You too. You look like you're carrying something heavy." He froze. "What do you mean?" She pointed to his chest. "In your heart. I see it." And then she walked into the elevator, leaving him stunned, staring at the closed doors, with something hot rising behind his eyes. That night, Grayson pulled out the photo again. The little girl in the picture had blonde hair and a dimpled smile. His daughter, Lily. He had lost her and her mother in a car crash over a decade ago. He had buried the pain in work, in walls, in money. Until now, until a 6-year-old with no shoes reminded him what loss felt like. He whispered to the photo, "Why does she remind me of you?" And in the quiet, no one answered, except maybe the ache inside him that said, "Tore because you needed to be reminded." The next morning, it rained. Dark clouds rolled over the skyline as puddles gathered in the street outside Global Edge Corporation. Most employees arrived wrapped in coats and umbrellas. Then came Jabo, soaked to the bone. No umbrella, a plastic grocery bag covering her head like a hood. Her pillowcase, bag clutched tight against her chest. Miss Carter rushed to her in the lobby. "Jabo! You're drenched!" Jabo smiled. "I'm still on time." "You could have gotten sick. Why didn't you wait for the rain to stop?" "Because Mommy's fever went up last night," she said. She was crying in her sleep. "I didn't want to be late." Miss Carter bit her lip, fighting tears. "Come on, let's get you dry." That day, Jabo's third task was helping in the mailroom. She sorted letters with 2 hands that were still trembling from the cold, yet she never complained. Instead, she hummed again. A soft, sweet hum that seemed to settle everyone's nerves. The mailroom manager, a grumpy man named Rick, was known for barking at interns, but even he found himself softening. "She called me sir," he whispered to another clerk. "No one's called me sir in 10 years. Meanwhile, upstairs in the executive suite, Charles Grayson sat reviewing the company's quarterly earnings. But the numbers blurred. His mind kept drifting, not to profit margins or projections, but to the little girl working 3 floors below, soaked to her socks, filing envelopes with dignity no adult could match. He clicked his intercom. "Carter." "Yes, sir." "Bring Jabo to my office." A few minutes later, Jabo stood at his door, still damp but smiling. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Boss," he smiled back. "Come in." She entered and looked around like she was seeing the inside of a spaceship. Her eyes landed on a large painting behind his desk. "Is that a real mountain?" "Yes." "Mount Rainier. It looks cold." "It is." She stepped closer to his desk. "Do you live here?" He chuckled. "Almost." She handed him a folded napkin. "I brought you something." Inside was half of her sandwich. Peanut butter and jelly. "I already had lunch," he said gently. "I know. But Mommy says when someone helps you, you share what little you have." He looked at the sandwich. The crust was torn. The jelly was leaking. It was humble, messy, and the most sincere gift he'd received in years. "Thank you, Jabo." She grinned. "Now you owe me." "Oh, how?" "You have to let me organize this room. It's messy." Grayson looked around. His desk was spotless, but her 6-year-old eyes saw otherwise. "Deal," he said. As she walked around picking up papers, she asked, "Why don't you smile more?" Grayson blinked. "I don't have a reason to." "You're rich. Money doesn't mean happiness." Jabo stopped, turned, and asked with a seriousness that startled him, "Chore. Then why do grown-ups always leave to chase it?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. She stared at him a second longer, then went back to organizing pens by color. Grayson sat there, stunned. Her question wasn't meant as philosophy. It was a memory. Later that evening, after Jabo left, Grayson picked up the phone. "Marcus, did you find anything?" "Yes, sir. Jabo's real name is Jabo Lane. Her mother, Emily Lane, was a nurse. Single, no father on record. She's currently unregistered with the hospital, likely avoiding bills." "Does she have insurance?" "No." "Medical records?" "Sparse. The child was born premature. Mother had complications. Lives in government housing. East Side." Grayson sighed, then said, "Send a private doctor to the address." Quietly. "No billing. I want a report tomorrow." "Understood." He hung up, leaned back, and rubbed his temples. This wasn't just an act of kindness anymore. It was personal. 2. That night, the doctor visited Jabo's home. Emily Lane was lying on a mattress in a dimly lit room. She didn't speak much. But when she learned someone had sent medical help because of her daughter, she cried silently. Jabo sat by her side, holding her hand. "Mummy, you don't have to hurt anymore." The next morning, a bouquet of white lilies was placed on Jabo's desk at work. A simple card read, "For the strongest little girl I've ever met from Mr. Boss." She gasped. Everyone around her smiled. Miss Carter whispered, "He's changing. Because of you." Jabo looked at the lilies and said, "Maybe he just needed someone to believe in him too." Meanwhile, Grayson stood in his office, staring at a framed picture of his daughter Lily. The resemblance between her and Jabo was haunting. Not physical, but the eyes. Both held the same unshakable truth, Tor, that love doesn't need wealth. It needs presence. It needs protection. And sometimes, it comes to your door in tiny feet, holding a crayon resume. That Friday afternoon, the mood in Global Edge's 37th floor was different. There were still meetings, deadlines, and phone calls, but there was also laughter, warmth, little moments of stillness. People smiled more. Voices softened, all because of a 6-year-old girl named Jabo. She had unknowingly become the soul of the building that had forgotten how to feel. 2. That day, Grayson made time in his schedule, a rare event, for a walk through the office. He was usually seen as a shadow, distant and untouchable, but now, he stopped by the HR desk and asked how the interns were doing. He complimented a junior analyst's presentation. He asked a janitor how his wife's surgery went. People stared. Whispers followed. As he, "Okay. Was that?" A smile. "What is happening?" But none were as shocked as Miss Carter. When he approached Jabo's corner desk, "How's the junior assistant doing today?" he asked. Jabo looked up from the paper she was drawing on. "I made you something." She handed him a picture, a colorful crayon sketch of two people standing in front of a tall building. One was clearly her. The other had big hair and square glasses. "Is that me?" he asked, pointing to himself. "Yes," she said, "but nicer." He laughed. Actually laughed. "And what's that above us?" "A heart," she said. "Because you gave me a chance. That means you have won." He looked at the paper for a long time, longer than he expected, then folded it and slipped it into his coat pocket like it was a treasure. 2. That evening, something even more unexpected happened. An email went out to the entire company from the CEO's direct addressed. "Whose subject? A new kind of employee chore. Today, we welcomed someone into this company who reminded me what real courage looks like. She is only 6 years old, but she has shown more strength, discipline, and humility than most adults ever will. Her name is Jabo, and she is our newest, and most important, hire. Let her remind us what we've forgotten, that business is about people, that work is about purpose, and that kindness is not weakness, it's leadership." C.W. Grayson, CEO Q. The office erupted. People who had never spoken to each other shared the email in group chats. One intern printed it out and taped it to the break room fridge. A junior manager cried in the bathroom stall after reading it. "And Jabo?" she asked Miss Carter. "Why is everyone smiling at me?" Carter knelt beside her and said, "Because you're making them human again." That night, Grayson took a quiet drive to the east side of the city. He parked a few houses away from a small, run-down apartment building. He didn't get out of the car. He just sat there, watching the light flicker from one window. He saw Jabo through the curtain, feeding her mother soup, adjusting a blanket. He had access to more money than he could spend in a dozen lifetimes. But in that moment, looking at that tiny apartment, he'd never felt so poor and so full at the same time. Back at home, Jabo curled up beside her mother. "Mummy, guess what?" "What, baby?" Emily asked faintly. "They're calling me Employee of the Week." Her mother smiled weakly. "That's because they finally saw what I already knew." Jabo laid her head on her mom's shoulder. "Do you think Mr. Boss has a daughter?" Her mom paused. "Maybe. If he did, I think she'd be proud of him today." In his office, Grayson opened a drawer he hadn't touched in 10 years. Inside was a music box, his daughter Lily's favorite. He wound it gently, and the soft tune filled the room. He closed his eyes and whispered chore. "Thank you, Jabo, for reminding me I still have a heart." Too. If somewhere in this story you saw a glimpse of your own pain, if Jabo's innocence or Charles' transformation touched your heart, then just remember this. To change the world, you don't need power, only a true heart. Thank you for spending your time here. Thank you for allowing yourself to feel something real. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might be waiting for a ray of hope. This wasn't a movie. It was a quiet reflection of that silent feeling that still lives within us. If it spoke to you, subscribe in your heart to kindness and pass it on, because someone out there is waiting for a sign that goodness still exists. Thank you for reading. And never forget, kindness doesn't need permission, just courage.